My experience with prisoners comes from more than 30 years ago, when I worked as a custodian and later social aid worker at various prisons in the Western Cape. It's cruel in prison, do not go there. If you have enough money to bribe the gangs it can work, but for the common man it's a nightmare. It's enough for your freedom to be taken away, but prison authorities can't do anything about what happens to you after you're locked in those cells. That's when the gangs look at you things. It's a term that means he can do whatever he wants with you and you. He belongs to a gang and you don't. He has ground for why he stands and you don't. And the authorities can't do anything about it. He can take what you have. Moreover, food, clothing, fate, and you are still raping. My first experience with these brutal gangs was when, as a probationary custodian at Westlake Prison, I had to do night service as a probationary officer at Westlake Prison, a small prison in the southern suburbs of Cape Town. Just after midnight, a prisoner called me to his cell window. There were about 60 prisoners lying on sleeping mats on the floor and sleeping. The prisoner points to someone who is in a kneeling position somewhere in the middle of the cell among the other sleeping people with his head in his hands on the ground. This young prisoner is crying and is clearly in terrible pain. The prisoner who called me point to the prisoner, keeper, his wheel is hanging. Through the half-darkness, I could see that the young charger had been raped, but with the violence of the rape, part of his colon was ripped out and hung bloodied outside tussle between his legs. All the other prisoners were apparently fast asleep. No one wanted to get involved. I immediately went to the member who is in charge and explained the situation to him. The prisoner must be taken to the hospital immediately. I was naive. It doesn't work that way. To open a cell at night, it costs to get all the guards to stand up for security. In any case, the master key that can unlock the cell is locked in a safe to which only the head of the prison has access. No, the prisoner had to wait in pain until the next morning. Before that, white and non-white prisoners were separated. Not anymore. Young white prisoners are especially sought after by the gangs as females, because they are beautiful. Gangs also discriminate. They love females that are light in color and have smooth hair. Do not go to jail. Later at Brandley Prison there was a group of inmates going with a Gomo, a special-built vehicle to transport prisoners. When transferred from Palsmore to Brandley, some went for hearings while others were just transferred. The Gomo has different compartments to transport different gang members separately. There was one prisoner who did not belong to a gang that also had to drive along. Unfortunately, the other compartments were already full, so it was decided to transport him into a department with a gang. It's just from Palsmore to Brandley. The prisoners are all handcuffed and have no weapons. When the Gomo stopped at Brandley and they unlocked one section, one gang leader jumped out with the head of the man who had killed them in his hands. He threw the head at the officer who opened up with a die. The man's head was completely cut off from the body during the drive from Palsmore. Think nothing of taking someone's life so cruelly. Do not go to jail. You don't want to be there. Another time, there was a 28 gang leader who wanted to get out of the gang after testifying against his fellow gang members on the court. After the trial, he was held in Victor Verster prison along with non-gang members or safe custodies. Much later, he was transferred to Brandley. When inmates are transferred from another prison to Brandley, everyone must first go and see the head of the prison. Everyone should enter the principal's office with naked torso. The head of the maximum security prison knows every emblem, every tattoo and stoka of each gang. For example, he knows that a six-legged spider or a sunrise are badges of the 26 gang. He looks for rank signs tattooed on the shoulders. He then decides where the prisoner should be divided 26 and 27 in section 1.28 and desperados in section 2. 24 alias the Air Force in section 3. When this particular prisoner came before him, he immediately recognized himself as a leader of the 28 gang. He decides he may not be detained along with the other prisoners, but must be held in the 28 tight corner, a cell only for 28 leaders. He sees that the 28 badges on his body, as well as his rank and the gang on his shoulders, are unrecognizable with other tattoos obscured. He, the head, had seen it before, how leaders are trying to camouflage themselves. He does not care about the prisoner's protest that he is no longer a gang member and that he killed his brothers on the court. He has heard this many times. He calls the wardens to take the inmate to the tight corner. I heard from my office the terrible tumult in the afternoon and screamed as about 10 wardens forced the single prisoner down the aisle with clubs and violence. Stay back. It gets cold on the porch as I sit and think of the things I experienced so long ago. I remember one day taking a prisoner by train from Worcester to Port Elizabeth for a further trial. On the way, I asked him what rank he now has in the gang. Half modestly, he said, "Ek wears a blanket of coronel from Nongaloza, Sargi." I asked him about a certain prisoner who should never come among other prisoners. He had no tattoos or features, but remains only in single seclusion all the time. Very friendly boyfriend and his clothes are always very neat, and in the scene. I also love to sing. Nee Sargi, he replied respectfully. This man is Lord Vanny 26's. What? The Lord? What's that? We ask. Sargi, answer him with great eyes. Is he sitting on the cloud? I know even less, but I know one thing. I don't want to be in jail. The gang surrendered themselves to the cruelest spirits. They know no mercy. Stay back. The thoughts are getting too much for me now. It's too cold on the couch.